Maybe not. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I'm calling the Board of Selectmen meeting to order. It is November 28th, 2022. It's just after 6 o'clock. And this, instead of waving Zoom and all that, I'm just going to say we are live via Zoom. It is also being recorded for later broadcast on YouTube. And the Cape Charter Spectrum, excuse me. So, if we could stand in to recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for people at home and listening in person, our interim town administrator Gary Kelleher, Skip Clark, Leah Whitman, sorry. I rushed home and he's still not here. We have Lyndon Nichols on Zoom, and I'm not sure if we have Tom Galvin on Zoom or not, but.
Yeah, Carol, can you hear me?
Great.
Yep, I'm here, I'm trying. I'm on the highway.
That's okay. Just got myself off of it, so no worries.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Okay.
Motion to approve Treasury warrant 23-11 and payroll 23-PW11.
Whitman seconds.
Through the chair, if I may, nothing is out of the ordinary. There's only a high recurring payment to the regional vocational assessment of $263,000. Other than that, everything is normal.
Thank you.
And if I may, thank you to Jean and you for continuing to forward us them electronically. I appreciate it. So, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Pass that along. But
I will say pass that along to Jean. Thank you.
So we need to do a roll call because we.
Clark, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, aye.
Galvin, aye.
And Benoit, aye. Thank you. Minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 14th and November 17th.
We can bundle them, right? I just want
Tamika was everybody.
I apologize. I had put those on there before the meeting. We didn't actually meet, so
Okay,
there are no
I was
minutes
like,
for it.
I was racking my brain. I was like,
Sorry, I
what?
got
No, that's
myself
okay.
behind. It's just 11:14.
So
Okay.
it's just 11:14. Okay. And everybody was here, right?
Whitman seconds.
And roll call vote.
Clark, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, aye.
Galvin, aye.
And Benoit, aye. Thank you. Okay. And anybody here for public comment?
Yes, Dick Williams, Overlook. Just a question. Do you, as a board, talk to the school board at all about the busing? Is the buses that are going around picking up kids, dropping kids off, do you find out how many are in there? I'm thinking that because a lot of parents are dropping kids off and picking them up, should these buses be,
One would think so.
yeah,
However,
can't.
the law is in this district, and I think all districts, is that each child must have a seat on the bus, regardless of whether that child takes the bus or not. So we have a lot of empty seats.
Yep.
But there's nothing we can do about it.
except get the state to fund it because it's an unfunded mandate?
Correct. And so when
And they had how many billion last year?
And when you say it's supposed to be 100% back for the transportation, I hate to say this out loud, but they do. They pat themselves on the back saying we're about 70%. So, yay us. So I know, sat in meetings and that's.
I did not know that they had such a thing. That is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I
Waste
know.
of fuel.
You know,
so forth.
have the parents sign a waiver or something saying I am not going to use
No,
this
to
bus.
start charging the parents that driving them to school. That way they offset it.
I'll second that emotion.
Emotion.
Thank
All
you.
right. Anyone else for public comment? Hello.
Nancy Nichols, Director of Council on Aging and resident. I just want to make the members of the Select Board aware, we had a presentation today for veterans from Janice Mitchell, who's a Realtor in Holden. Senator Goby was there, Representative Ferguson was there, and for at least a year now, probably a couple of years, a lot of members of the community, particularly seniors, have requested that the flag be repaired at the center, at the community center. So the pole was bent, and I believe it was due to a flag that was too large on there, so it bent the pole. But the solution at the time, instead of replacing or repairing the pole, was that the pole was removed. So now Senator Goby and Representative Ferguson have given the town for the community center an American flag, Massachusetts state flag, and they have ordered a POW flag. So I just said that I would come and make the select board aware and request that new poles put up. It's my understanding from the veterans agent that you cannot hang anything but a POW flag underneath an American flag, so we would require 2 poles. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Yes.
I guess, Gary, maybe might be a Joe question, just to make sure that whatever poles are adequately sized for the flags, so that we don't run into the issue with them bending, or if 2 flags are going on one pole, that
Okay.
they can sustain the weight and everything.
Alrighty.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. And these are, that's a 4x6 American flag and a 3x5. And I believe the POW is probably a 3x5.
That's smaller than the American flag.
Yes.
After speaking with the veterans agent, is it recommended that the POW fly under the under the state?
Well, that's the only flag allowed to be under the American flag.
So
what she
it would be
said.
nice to have maybe 3 flags, 3 poles.
I suppose you could.
Okay.
I think,
Just-
and I think the American flag has to be the highest,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I mean, not just, even if they're on separate poles, it still needs to be the highest.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going. Okay, I'd like to call, next we have the public hearing for tax rate classification, so I'd like to call the public hearing to order. It is, if that's correct, it's 6:09. Let's have a presentation, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Amy Abnowski. I'm the assessor here in Rutland, and I'm here to present the classification hearing. If you look into your documents, we'll start with terminology. The levy. The tax levy is the amount of property tax to be raised. This fiscal year's property tax levy is $19,188,165.41. Fiscal year 22 was $18,342,944.65. This represents a 4.6% increase over last year. The levy ceiling is the 2.5% of the full taxable value of the town, based on Rutland's aggregate valuation of $1,398,554,331. The town cannot levy taxes in the excess of $34,963,858. New growth revenue. New growth revenue is property taxes derived from newly taxable properties like new construction, additions, renovations, subdivisions, and personal property. The assessors have tabulated new growth revenues in $491,734. The levy limit for FY year 2023, the maximum levy is $19,196,545. Then there is the excess levy capacity, which is the difference between the actual levy and the levy limit, which is figured in at $8,379.59. The levy limit amounts to be raised. The levy limit from last year was $17,045,787. The levy limit increased underneath Proposition 2.5 is $426,145. New growth revenue, as said before, would be $491,734. We have no overrides. The fiscal year 23 levy limit would be $17,963,666. We do not have any capital expenditure exclusions. Excluded debt to pay bond would be $1,232,879. The maximum allowable levy is $19,196,545. The total levy to be raised, as said before, is $19,188,165.41. The next table shows you valuations of classes. So we have residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. The residential class represents 95% of 100% of the classes. The commercial, industrial, and personal property, which is what we call the CIP class, represents only about 5% of that 100%. You can also take a look at the LA4, which is a breakdown of all of our different kinds of classes and the amounts for each. The number of properties that will realize corrective adjustments or increases relative to additions and renovations this year. Last year's fiscal 22 average tax value was $349,540.10. The tax rate last year was $15.79, so the average tax rate that most homeowners were getting was $5,519.24. This year's average home value is $419,830.24. The proposed tax rate, given that it's not adjusted anymore by DLS, would be $13.72. That brings the tax rate for this year's average bills to $5,760.07. This is an increase of $240.83 from last year's average tax bill. So the next part we can see the shifting of the tax rates. So as I said, that the residential class bears most of the burden, and then the commercial industrial class only averages 5%. So even shifting it from 1.10, 1.25, and 1.5, we see that the average tax bills that is shifted, which should go down if there was a larger commercial property class, it should go down significantly, but the reduction is only $151.14. And you'll see the increase for businesses, their tax bill would go up by $3,844.64. That's even only added at the residential class carrying 92% of the burden. We just don't have enough commercial in this town to split the tax rate. So the Board of Assessors recommends that we adopt a single tax rate to be applied to all properties in Rutland.
Thank you. Any discussion, any conversation about what we've heard?
So, if I may, the tax rate is decreasing significantly, but home values have also increased significantly. So that's where we're seeing the increase in the most tax bills are because the home valuation has gone up.
Yes, yes. I've seen at least a 20% increase in central Massachusetts for home values go up across the board. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but not by much. So values are up, in which tax rates go down.
Right.
So the 240 works out to about $20 a month. I know for some people it may be impossible, but it's not horrible.
Yeah.
Are we going to be reevaluating again in the spring like we did this year, or we did valuation adjustments?
As far as
like our tax bills, and then I remember it had to be adjusted, so I guess, are we up for another evaluation of our homes, another assessment of our homes, another?
So every year we have to adjust according to market. We have
So
to make
is-
sure
is
our
this
values.
that?
That's how we arrive at the valuation that we have currently. So we had to adjust to be at within 95% of the 2021 sales, which were overinflated by at least 20%, if not more, which is ridiculous, but that's our mandate by DLS, is that we're within that 95. And I try to get as close to that or under as possible. And you know, I'm seeing it everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason other than what the market's bringing. And the homes are, you know, just like stocks and bonds, unfortunately with taxes, they fluctuate with market demand. And that's what brings us to the high values that we have right now, so.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, can I get a motion to?
Close the hearing.
Yes.
Whitman seconds.
Roll call to close the meeting.
Clock eye.
Whitman, I.
Hearing.
Nichols eye.
Galvin aye.
And Benoit, aye, thank you. All right. So can I get a motion to?
Do you want us to read, should we read this motion, the proposed motion here?
If you'd
or-
like, it's completely up to you.
The Rutland Select Board votes in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended, the percentage of local tax levy which will be borne by each class of real and personal property relative to setting the fiscal year 2023 tax rates, and set the residential factor at 1.0 with a corresponding CIP shift of 1.0 pending approval of the town's annual tax recap by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call
Clock eye.
vote? Great.
Whitman, I.
Nichols eye.
Galvin aye.
And Benoit, aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, and
Thank
the
you.
board and the office for all the work, because I know it's a lot, and I want to look more at the chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really does break everything down specifically, so you can see, like even we were just talking about, just even the chapter land, you know, so it's different parts of it that are really interesting, different for people in the town.
Fantastic.
Thank you for all the info.
All right. Karina, you're up first if you wanna. Sure. You wanna go first?
That's kind of thing. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to update everyone on a lot of things that have gone on in the last probably 6 months that I've been here. Seems like forever ago, but we had a great summer pool and camp, and we had a number of firsts that I think are really positive for the town. First of all, the pool was extremely busy. We all know that it was like very, very hot and beautiful weather all summer long, so we were very busy. I don't think we had a fully closed day all summer. We were open at least part of the day every day, whereas last year, like I think 11 days in July, we were either closed or open for 2 hours and then had to close because of cold, wet weather. So it was very high usage. So camp, we were full every week. We had about 90 campers attending every day for 9 weeks. So camp kept us very busy. I'm sure everyone saw the kids on their various travels around the town. We had a first time summer youth basketball league. So we partnered up with Paxton Rec, who we do winter basketball with. They we kind of flip-flopped because Rutland Rec kind of spearheads winter basketball, but I told Paxton that I couldn't really put a lot of time into it because I was a little busy otherwise. So Paxton Rec kind of coordinated a summer youth basketball league. We had 50 Rutland kids play. That was open for grades 5 through 12, and they had a great time. So I think there were probably 80 kids in the league altogether that played for, I think they had 8 weeks that they played. So that was really, I got a lot of good feedback on that. People really loved it. We had, Sarah and I planned the bike parade together. We had 63 participants in the bike parade, which is like double what we've ever had. So it was a little, it was a little crazy, but it was a lot of fun. The kids are really, really cute. It was a little crowded on the common because they also decided to have food trucks there that day. So that was a little nutty. The town seems to be shrinking by the day with places for things like that. So we had our first ever recreation parade float. So we had a bunch of lifeguards and camp counselors and camp kids and pool kids all ride on the parade float, do their little parade waves. That was really fun. That's been a goal of mine for a while, so the aquatic staff at the pool kind of coordinated that. The parade float was still behind the pool house and trying to get them to come back and get it. So hopefully that will be gone soon. Another thing that I've been wanting to do for a few years now, but kind of got sidelined because of COVID, was a doggy paddle. So our last day of summer, we opened the pool for people to bring their dogs to come and swim. So we had like 20 dogs in the pool, jumping around. It was a great time. It was amazing. Ellie's in Holden donated all of our door prizes. So every doggy got a little doggy bag full of treats and toys and stuff like that. So that was very fun. The fireworks, we opened up the snack shack like we usually do for the fireworks. Wasn't great because they had all the food trucks there for the first time, so it ended up costing us money to be open for the fireworks, where usually we're able to generate about $4,000 that night that goes into the pool, but it ended up costing us money to be open by the time we paid for staff and stuff. Let's see, so that was summertime. Brings us to the school year. So we kicked off the school year, we brought back our production of Aladdin Jr. at Central Tree. So we have the middle school putting on a licensed production of Disney's Aladdin Jr., and that's going on December 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's all volunteer run, and they've managed to fundraise enough. We've bought all new sound and light equipment, so in the future we don't have to rent equipment anymore, and the school can also use it. So the school has been an amazing partner with us for that. I don't know how they did it, but one of the parents knew somebody, and they got a high school who had put on Aladdin to donate their professionally built sets to us. So we have professionally built sets over at the middle school. Mr. C showed up on Sunday to help them with load-in day. I say us, I had nothing to do with it. It was all them. So tickets are on sale now for that. Like I said, they're working really hard. The costumes, the sets are amazing. The kids and the parents have been putting a lot into it. We have I think Mr. Jarvie, do you guys building stuff at your barn? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Sunday.
Yeah, he's helped.
It was nice to get the barn open again.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It all came out
I'm sure.
fantastic.
So that's that. We've got Theater Arts Club and Dodgeball going on after school at Glenwood and Naquag. Basketball season kicks off this week, so we have about 370 kids playing, plus another 35 on waiting lists, and those are all like little kids who we can't fit anywhere because we don't have any more gym space. And I think that's about it for programs right now. So we also will be starting up after the new year. We received a United Way Community Impact Grant focused on improving academic and social emotional outcomes in pandemic recovery from the United Way. So we're going to use that money for club-based after-school and out-of-school time programs at Central Tree. So it's going to be service-based. So they'll be focused on different interest areas. I think we're going to do 4 clubs. We got enough funding to do 4 clubs. Focus on different interest areas, and they're going to have community-based mentors like business leaders and things like that in the town that help them develop service projects that are going to be available to the community. So for instance, if it was a wellness-based club, they might find a yoga teacher, learn about their career path, and then put on a yoga class that's open to the community or something like that sort of idea. So we'll be working with school staff as facilitators for that program, and then volunteer mentors in the community for that. So that will be in the new year.
Fantastic.
And that's all I've got.
That's all you've got.
That's it.
I'm exhausted.
That's all.
Amazing. I mean, I said it last year too. My granddaughter attends camp and she just loves it. I don't know if you want her there, but she loves it. She loves it. So I'm very concerned that you lost money and that you had that this was such a big fundraiser in the past. So I think we need to address that.
Yeah.
I hope we can chalk it up to maybe it was a 300 thing and it's not going to happen again because
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't think we get much money. My thinking is that we don't get much from.
I don't believe
From
the
the
food
trucks.
like the town itself doesn't get anything from the
Right.
food trucks.
So-
And we had an ice cream truck that was selling the exact same products we were selling, parked right next to the pool house.
Yeah,
So it was tough.
that sounds
I know.
unfortunate.
I know in the past, like the only approved like vendors had been nonprofits that were fundraising for like themselves. So the
Right.
recreation, the scouts, the congregational church, that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because this year the lines for food were still crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so. I don't know how to address like. People weren't
Well-
getting food because the lines were so long. But then there
Right.
was it like did people
Well, I
not?
think
Yeah.
they were just more willing to wait in line, wait in the line 40 people deep at whatever, like gourmet French fry truck or whatever was down the way rather than get in line at the Snack Shack and buy a hot dog and chips or grilled cheese or whatever. So
Right. Well, and I'm wondering if they just didn't realize, like, if we as a town didn't do a good job, like, highlighting the fact that, like, recreation, the pool house is open and the scouts are open and,
Yeah.
um,
it always has been like just nonprofits and town
Right.
organizations, and that's been great for us because we just you never know with the pool. Like this summer, it was a wonderful summer, but it's a lot more expensive to run the pool when it's open every single day. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We don't want the pool to be closed, but it's so we kind of a little cushion, extra fundraising when we can is really helpful.
and I think your comment also about having the food trucks on the common while you're trying to do the doll and stroller parade and everything is bike and stroller parade is really tough also because
Yeah.
those are little kids that can get lost in
Right.
it's nice to have food options, so I do wonder if there's
Yeah.
ways to balance it or rethink if it's going to continue going forward to make it.
Yeah, it's like I said, I feel like the town is just getting smaller and smaller. Like
Yeah.
there's, just kind of busting at the seams in every direction.
Yeah, and I think that was mostly 4th of July, right, committee that does.
Yeah.
I think it was the 304th. I think they did a lot of stuff together
Yeah.
this year. But I think it's worth having a conversation next year.
Yeah.
If we do concerts on the common every
Right.
Friday, maybe that's the opportunity for food trucks, and 4th
Yeah.
of July is
Yeah.
go back to the nonprofits.
Yeah, no,
Just my thinking out loud.
Right, because I mean, you're right, there were lines everywhere, so I think like other food options are a good idea. But just kind of like the spacing and kind of how they're promoted.
Well, and I was going to say even space them out a little bit so that the most easy to access are the town nonprofits, and then everything else might be a little bit of a farther
Yeah.
walk.
And we might take advantage of using the rec tent for that night and split up. I mean,
We had the tent kind of shut down so that we didn't have too many issues in the tent area.
yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah.
I hear that,
Yeah.
but I also wonder,
Yeah.
non-cooked items over here,
Right.
just to make people not frustrated
Yeah.
and leave
Yeah.
the line. But
Yeah.
we might not see another 4th like that again
I know.
because it's
It was
it was
amazing.
the 300th and it was.
It was amazing. It was like it was incredible. There was so many. So, yeah.
Mr. Jarvie.
Thank you, through the chair. I was just gonna add, the
Could you
first.
Just your name and your
Oh,
address.
God,
Thank you.
Kevin Jarvie, 80 Hillside Road. The, first year concert on the Commons, we did some money back, percentages, and that's not at all unheard of, is my point. I would, for nonprofits, don't, but for the
Yeah.
nonprofits to nicely ask for a 10 or 15 or 20% kickback, especially on the 4th of July, those are good nights for, all of those. So, I mean, you take your church and your Boy Scouts and all them are good, and you make it known, even through the concerts on the Common. I would think that all that money could be
Yeah.
put into the rec department, and it would easily make up, I think, for
Yeah.
the loss of that night. It might even be better than, you know what I
Right.
mean? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
one way or another, because the other companies
Yeah.
are still making revenue. It would have been, you know, I wouldn't ask for 30 or 40%
No.
because then it doesn't make it worth it, but a smaller, and you might be surprised how much it could add up.
Okay, great idea. Great idea.
To Kevin, right, not Keith, Kevin. We've already discussed that actually, because even the festival of trucks or whatever they had here, the town didn't reap of any of that benefit, so we have discussed that and see if we can put something together for next year to make that happen, and I will certainly appreciate your input or help with that. And also, we could even buy Karina a food truck and let her just sit right out there. No?
I
No?
know of a couple
No?
for
I'm gonna
sale.
take second prize on that one, thank you though.
Thanks, Kevin. Can we have discuss that? I'd like to talk with you about
Yeah.
that more later.
Great, thank you. Thank you. As a business, I appreciate hearing that from a business owner.
Yeah, when we go off-site other locations, we give, at the end of the day, they come around, the owner comes around, "Hi, did you have a good day?
How good
Call
was
my wife, what was the number, and they give you the number, and, you know,
Fantastic.
it's kind of part of it, so, I mean, for us, I don't see any reason why. And then, the more trucks, the more people, you're not worried about the food flowing, because you're getting a piece of everything.
Thanks for all the work. I know it's a lot with their own staff.
Bare bones.
So thank you. I know, the families definitely appreciate it. And the pool was a huge plus this summer, and I wonder if some of it was Holden
yeah.
also really restricted their out of town passes and everything.
Yes.
So
Yeah, they don't do any out-of-town day passes, and I'm good friends with the Holden Rec director, so she'd be like, "I'm sending some your way. It's very nice out today." So, yeah, we all work together.
yeah. No, my crew loved it up there. And,
Yeah, it's great. It's their lifeguard, like the whole pool staff that we have is awesome. A lot of them have come up from through swimming lessons, and now they're helping with swimming lessons or lifeguarding or so.
And I think the camp staff is the same way. I've heard, families love the pool staff and the camp staff. It's hard to kind of not spend that time with your kids over the summer, but it's nice to know that they're going someplace and have peers that they can look up to and kind of be mentored by. And so thank you.
It's definitely a family atmosphere.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Sarah?
Yes, it's been a while since I've been here. I think it was back in June when we were closing up shop for the 2021-2022 school year. So we started registration for this year back in June, which was nice to go back to like our normal start time as opposed to the summer before when it was like August and crazy for a couple weeks. So we started registration. We currently have 136 kids enrolled, some full-time, some part-time, some flexible schedules. We have a lot of firefighters and police officers and nurses that work those like 4-day rotating shifts that we're able to accommodate all of those schedules, which makes it a lot easier for the families. We are still able to offer drop-in care in the mornings and some afternoons. We're completely full Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons, so there's very limited flexibility there. But we have a lot of families that take care of the morning drop-in. Parents have appointments or meetings at work, so that's still an option. For the first time since coming back from COVID, I am fully staffed. I have 12 staff members, so that's been nice to not have to move people from school to school or make sure I'm somewhere to cover. We have a couple kids from the high school this year. We had 2 last year. They've been amazing, just kind of like fit right in with the staff that have been here for the entire time I've been here as well, so that's been really nice to have them. We've seen a big increase in the state vouchers that we're taking. I feel like since I've been here, we've had like 1 or 2 vouchers every year, usually on like subsidized slots through the Department of Education. This year we have 9, and it's a mix of EEC and DCF vouchers. So we've seen a huge increase in that. And the vouchers, I take them at Safe Place and Clubhouse, and then they can transfer over to Karina for summer camp. So the families are able to utilize them all year long. And then in January, I actually do my renewal for the state contract for the vouchers. So we haven't had to do that since pre-COVID. They just kind of took our voucher contract in 2019 and just kept rolling it over. So now we have to apply for that again. But other than that, I think we'll start like planning for next year probably in March. I haven't done a rate increase for Safe Place in several years, but with the cost of everything, I mean, food this year is a huge increase. So there'll be a little rate increase for next year, but we haven't raised it in I think 4 years. So But other than that, everybody's good. The kids were busy making ornaments for the Festival of Trees this weekend today. So
Where did the pipe cleaner tree end up?
yeah, that's a good question.
It was here.
It's still here.
I don't.
It was in the
I don't go
children's
upstairs
library
right
not too long ago.
Thank you.
Oh.
I was like,
Yeah, I'm like,
One
I
of
know I
its
saw
trees.
it, but maybe it
what
was
is that? Monstrosity. Thank you. Thank you. Fabulous. Fabulous.
so nice to be back. No COVID stuff anymore. Just normal every day.
And kids get real colds,
Yep.
which they all have right now.
Yep, they all do. The stomach bugs been going around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. For my, because I don't know,
Mhm.
the vouchers,
Yes.
is that reimbursable by the state?
Yeah, so the
Somewhat?
state actually, parents have to they have to have a service need, either working full-time, in school full-time, whatever it may be, and then depending on what their income is, the state determines that they have a parent fee, they may not,
Mhm.
and the state pays the rest of it
Okay.
to us.
Thank
But
you.
like the increase in those, we could probably take more, but then I'd have to turn away full-time parents that are paying out of pocket, so we take a few. This year we took 9.
Is there a percentage based on your enrollment that you need to take?
We don't need to take
Take
any.
any, okay.
No, we don't need to take any.
So it's all up to you.
Yeah.
Great.
I love that Rutland's able to offer this, because hearing, some of the other towns that parents are left kind of scurrying and stressed and everything. So I love that Rutland's able to offer it as almost a guarantee. If you need it, it's available.
Yep.
I know you said that I think Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons especially are full.
Yep.
What's the limiting factor there? Is it staff? Is it space? Like,
It's our license capacity, so
Okay.
we can only take 52 kids at any time at both schools.
okay,
Yeah,
so
so once we hit that, we can't take any
I
more.
wasn't sure what was, that limiting factor there.
Yeah.
If there's a need in the community, and I imagine that there will continue to be. I don't know for sure. I'm sure you look at the numbers that maybe DESE provides, or the district gets, or
Right.
whatever, to try to gauge. But if what it takes to get.
It's like, so our capacity is determined by the size of like the cafeteria and the gym space of the schools, and that's all we can use in the school, so we couldn't increase it there. There's always the option like of an off-site location, but then you get into transportation and how's the district gonna now bus kids from the school to a daycare, and when it's not an everyday thing, that just,
Right.
at that age group, 3 days a week you're going on this bus home, and then you're going here,
Right.
you're not going.
Yeah, I know.
It's very nice to be at the schools.
Yeah, I know even for like CCD that some of the buses are like overflowing,
Yeah.
almost overflowing with CCD and stuff, just
Yeah.
because of that. So, yeah, for the kids that are only a couple days a week, or it
Right.
needs to be a drop in or something.
Right.
So
Yeah, because it would be very hard to offer like we couldn't do drop-in care at all if we were off-site, because then how would the kids get to or from? You can never
Right.
make those last-minute transportation changes.
right.
Yeah.
Central Trade, is there a need for like the 6th graders? They're kind of like,
Yeah, so what we do is if the parents need before school care, they can technically drop them off at NACOG at 7:30, and then at like 5 minutes of 8, one of my staff members would walk them to the back of NACOG, and they'd have to walk down the little side street. I think maybe the very first year I started here back in 2016, we had one kid that for a month did it and was all set hanging out with kindergarten, first and
No,
second
thank you.
graders. I have had some kids in the afternoon, they get bused and they go to Glenwood. But again, 2 or 3, it lasts a little while, and then the parents kind of give them a chance to go home
Okay.
after school.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know if there was a need in set up another,
Yeah.
that could be increase in capacity
Right.
here. I know not transporting them up and down the street is
Right.
probably not the best, but.
But yeah, no, we don't see any over there.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions for Sarah?
Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you so
Thank you
much.
for-
Thank
thanks
you
all your
both.
staff to be back in it.
I know,
and-
so nice to have everybody back.
yeah.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Town Administrator update.
I'd like to say thank you to the ladies as well, so thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And I see we even marked, dig safe some areas today for drainage down there, and that's getting underway.
Oh, happy day.
And so, that person that you and I've talked about work in the basement at Town Hall did contact me. I did put a call back into them, so hopefully,
great.
hopefully
Okay.
we'll get that started, just to let you know. But thank you both, thank you very much. Just a couple of quick things. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with the superintendent of schools, as well as the facilities manager, and fellow TAs of the region, if you will. That's gonna take place at the main office. Dick, I did write your note down about buses, because I'd like to learn more about that myself. The goal out of this particular meeting is to get the updated capital plan that we've talked about in the past, and also really to get started with them on budget projections or proposals, because I really wanna jump on this and get something started. But you gonna ask a question?
May I?
Yes.
No.
Did you
Yes.
did you see my email about when I was at the school committee meeting a couple of meetings ago, they had presented their kind of capital budget plan for the whole district.
Okay.
And one of them was the roof on Central Tree. And I know when we did the solar panels that there was an agreement that the roof either needed to be redone or like made to be able to last the 20 years with, and I know that was one of the holdups on the agreement, and was back and forth and everything. I don't know whatever came of it. I think I had forwarded you the email correspondences that I had from, I think it was started with Margaret and finished with Mike. Just if that's on their capital plan for the next 5 years, like I I had seen it, that maybe we need to investigate what was done.
And I agree 100%. It was on the last copy, a draft of the capital plan for astronomical amount of money.
Yeah.
So we'll go over the new capital plan tomorrow, and I'll certainly discuss
Okay.
that.
And just,
May I reiterate, I think what your question might be, because I think I've had the same question. We put solar on a roof, and now the roof is prematurely kaput. Whose fault? It's if the solar company, I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think we signed the agreement with the understanding that the roof would be taken care of and not need anything for the life of the panels, which is what, 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just don't have the agreement, and I couldn't find the written agreement in my files. I'm sure it's up at town hall or in the office or
Okay.
something, to see what was actually done and what on
Okay.
the sign off for the work that was actually done, because I know that was one of the things that was going back and forth between us and the district. At one point, the district, there was some back and forth, and we were not willing to put the solar on if it was going on a subpar roof, just as I would expect the solar company to not want to put solar on a subpar roof. So
Okay, I'll do some investigation
Okay.
to see what I can find.
yeah,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yep. The other thing, as you all know, is December 1st, which is Thursday. We're meeting with Senator Goby and Representative Ferguson for upcoming grant opportunities. Community Compact Grant, other grants obviously were the reason we called this meeting initially, and they reached out to us as well, was a security grant for our schools within the district. So they've been very helpful between Mr. Loosemore and the senator and the representative. We've been in pretty good contact, so we hope to learn some things and see what's available and get started and save some money. I hope and get some money. And the next thing I have is in your packet. It actually could be part of old business because we've been batting around with this for several months now. Initially, a gentleman on Christmas Tree Lane wanted to purchase a parcel of property that was in the Christmas Tree Lane right-of-way. It was only about 41 by 40 feet. I recommend to the board not to have that purchase go through because we don't know what's going to happen down there in the future. The gentleman appealed that decision by the board, brought it back again and for the same outcome. And we talked about a possible easement or a temporary right of entry to do some work. I believe in your packet, I did jot down some notes to send off to Sharon last week for her input. I did talk with the Director of Public Works prior to sending them to her, and what she did was added on the license agreement on the 2 pages shown, very short, just one word on page 2, and a paragraph and a sentence on page 1, was to give this person a right of entry, a temporary, for temporary construction work, with no work or no town property to be altered. And initially he wanted to regrade, which which could be certainly, I thought it was, no, out of the question, we didn't want that to happen. Obviously, the last meeting, the board agreed that we should not be giving the person an easement, which gives him the right forever and ever. So this, in short, gives the person the right of entry to do his construction work. He may perform his construction work from town property. We just don't want any alteration in whatever damages or grading he has to do for equipment, or otherwise the parcel has to be returned to as close to original as possible. This will be under the direction of the Department of Public Works, and we expect some detailed plans as to what he intends to do. So with that, I think you have the entire new agreement that's not bolded. I would recommend the board approve and sign this. This will be for a 6-month period and can be renewed, but again, only as right of entry till completion of the project.
I'll make a motion to assign this lease for Christmas Tree Lane.
Whitman seconds. Can I just clarify that if I'm reading this correctly, we had concerns about him doing any work at all on the town property, and this adds a clause that it could be done as reasonably necessary with approval by the Director of Public Works, and that then it is restored to original condition as closely as practicable.
Right.
So he can do the grading to get in to do his
If
work.
if he has to use our property, your property, to get access to his property to do that for lift or for whatever the reason, yes, but it has to be returned to as close to original as.
And it needs to be in consultation with with DPW.
Right, exactly.
just-
And Mr. Buckley knows that.
Yep.
We've talked about that, so yes.
So they're gonna have right to grade.
Only for the necessary act of getting to install his retaining wall.
Why would you need to grade to have
Only
access?
depending on slope, depending on what kind of retainage he's putting in there, depending on slope for equipment access, and then to return it. I don't know if any members of the board have gone down and viewed that. It's really just access to what used to be a gigantic beaver pond. But we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. We don't wanna sell that in case something has to be done for walking trails or whatever.
I would be okay with this if detailed photos were taken that show height, shows what the grade is now, shows everything.
He's gonna have plans.
Yeah, it's gotta have
detailed
specific plans, but we can certainly add
But then
photos
to get
that.
it to,
To-
how do we know it was
original. Okay,
restored
gotcha.
if we don't
Oh, yeah.
have
Sure,
Yep.
we can do
a
that.
visual
We can do that.
reference? All right,
Through the chair.
Yes.
So I think at the last meeting we had discussed that, doesn't this have to go through planning board for approval as well?
No,
Planning board doesn't have to look at the plans?
well, we can send it to him, but as long as it's not over, what, 5 feet?
Yeah, I don't believe
Oh, yeah,
it's
that was
necessary.
that was the
Lyndon,
thing. The
Kevin,
wall.
can you answer, Kevin, is that?
I don't know that,
Yep.
unless it's not a public right of way, it's not a roadway, it's not a.
No, it's just town-owned property. It's a small
Town property, we
41 by
driving
42
bulldozers
feet
over for
parcel.
6 months or
But
something.
Lyndon, I think what if I remember, we're talking about the height of the wall, and we thought it might be significant, and I think that's where
That's where we'd ask for the plans.
that's where we ask that at that height it may need to go to planning
Until
because
we
of the
have-
height
Yeah,
of the wall.
smaller for
A retaining wall over a certain height should have a structural engineer, okay, who can be either working for you guys or, you know,
Well, if it's on his
When it-
private property, that would be
would have
the
been.
person that would be responsible to
Right.
to get those to us. Yeah. But any permitting required, he would have to get, not, we wouldn't have to get. We're just giving him a temporary right of entry.
Yeah, that's not, I mean.
If I thought at one point he had already talked to Concom, was that at one
Conservation,
point?
that's
Right,
not
no,
planning board.
right, no, I was just gonna say, I think he had already talked to
Yeah.
Concom, but it's still on him to make sure he obtains all necessary
Any
permits.
necessary permits, it's in his, yeah, even any legal cost, anything that has to be done, that's his ball of wax.
Right.
Okay. Lyndon, does that help?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. All right.
Clock eye.
Whitman, I.
Nichols eye.
Galvin, I.
And Benoit, aye. All right.
Thanks, Gary, for working on that. I know
Oh,
it's
no.
been
No, thank you.
circling
Thank
around
you.
and around.
Everybody's been pretty patient with this, it's gone back and forth for too long, so just wanna get it done, so.
So
And that's all I have.
That's all you have. Okey-doke. So we have old business, which is chapter land policy. This is my 2 cents before we do anything. I looked at this quite thoroughly over the weekend, and I think I actually did a lot of restructuring of it because it flows better, it makes more sense the way, the way I restructured it. But there's a big chunk of this that's missing, and I've talked to Tamika about this, and that is, if this is a policy, and I understand that it's coming from the lens of the assessor's office, but if it's a chapter land policy, what's missing is, what do we do during the 120-day window? We're getting the appraisal, we're getting the appraisal to the property owner in X amount of time. So all of that internal working of what the town offices is doing is missing from this policy. So I don't know that it's a complete policy in order to review it and make it so.
I was wondering if AgCom has seen it at all, either just because they are more familiar with the process than not from an assessor standpoint, because that's through one lens, but from the practicality standpoint of having worked with chapter land, that they might be able to offer some input, and any other boards and commissions, but AgCom specifically comes to mind just because they are a lot of...
1 second, because this might answer.
You do realize this is all state. I mean, this has got nothing to do with us. It really has nothing to do with the town of Rutland. It's all state regulated.
Right.
And it specifies right there how, they make an attempt, they write a letter to the town saying they want to sell it, and then it's on the town to get it out to everybody else.
Right.
Regarding the other commissions and committees that need to be a part of this process, my suggestion is, yes, they should look at it, but do they want to write their own internal policy? What do we do when we get this? And we refer in our policy, please see the AgCom policy, please see the conservation policy, so that we're not duplicating efforts, but yes, please.
I was just going to say, the board had requested that the first time Amy presented it, and she did send this out to all of the boards and commissions, and the only one she received a response from was the Conservation Commission. So AgCom, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, everybody was asked for their feedback. And if I may, I would have some hesitation about each individual board or commission having their own policy, because I think it may cause confusion, because technically speaking, the only thing that those boards and commissions are being asked to do is provide their feedback to the select board, but outside of that, there's nothing that they need to do under MGL. The only requirement is that they be notified.
Okay. Thank you. I think sometimes when I speak, I put together policy and procedure, and this is really kind of a both documents, but I think we're looking at our policies as this is what happens, but we have to do it this way. This is, and I think that we, if those other, they still need to know what to do. And I guess that's why I'm saying not a policy. They probably don't, I don't think they should have a policy, but they do have a procedure. Who receives it, where's it go, how much time do they have, and who are they writing back to? I mean, something just as simple as, what do we do when we get this?
Is that something that the select board would oversee and require those boards and commissions to do that? Because I think it's important that if we're gonna do it, it would have to be, this is the expectation and this is a product that has to be presented.
Yeah, and it's not a big product, it's
right.
It's a few steps, whatever the few steps are, what they're looking for.
I have, and it's ironic that I'm here for something else tonight, but this came up. I think I talked to you a little bit about, if I may, through the chair. I had, 2 years ago, removed a piece of property from 61A, went through the entire process, we were in no rush. I held that property for 2 years, and then I went to sell it, 6 months ago, and I wasn't allowed to because the assessor's office from 2 years ago didn't do the checklist. Everything was done, the town was done, and then the assessor's office never released a lien on that property. So I had to go back, I had to go to the registry of deeds 3 times. I lost 5 months. And in all honesty, now I didn't do the foundation to do my tap room this winter. That was supposed to be the money from the, so if not policy, if a checklist, or if the assessor's office did what they were supposed to do after this was all done, I wouldn't have been in that situation. And then when it comes to, and I agree, it's the same thing on the planning board, I didn't see anything.
No.
It would go to your chair. It wouldn't go to each one of you individually. It goes to
If it
the
was sent to
chair.
David George, the board never saw any of this. And I think that's kind of ironic that you've got chapter landowners. I've done it just 5 times now. I've taken land out of, you know what I mean, 4 or 5, we've done this process, I've done this process as a citizen. And on the board, we weren't asked of any opinion at all from Mr. George.
You know, go ahead.
And on the Ag Commission, you know, we've had a council that's really knowledgeable about this and really can pick out things, and I would love to have that policy that Amy put together and have our council take a look at it, the Ag Commission. So.
But you said you sent it, did you send it to somebody at AgCom?
Yes.
Yeah, so
But we
if
haven't
it's not trickling down to you,
we have not had a meeting
okay,
in
yeah.
almost 2 months now.
That's not our problem.
I know,
All right,
trust me.
so let's not even go there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think for the boards and commissions and the offices that kind of we oversee, it's nice to have the checklist and kind of the I don't want to say mandate, but like this is what we need when this happens. For the other elected boards and everything, it's a little like more of a gray area, just because as an elected board we can't manage
What
another
elected boards would want this?
Planning.
The
planning.
planning board's the only one. Board of Health and all them? I mean,
But assessors are elected also.
what, the assessor's already got it.
Right,
They're
no,
the
no,
ones
I
that
know,
working
but-
with it.
Yeah. But to Kevin's point, I don't know that all of this has gone through and now this is what the assessor's office does. That seems
And,
like it might not
also,
be
if
there
I can,
either, so.
I was there 5 years ago, I was a member for 3, and there's a lot of rotation over in that office. And I don't know if RRG is still overseeing everything, but even RRG had a lot of rotation. So even in my 3 years that I was on the board, we had multiple different people in there, and what happened behind the scenes, the policies, the checklists, what was handed down from one to the next office. Who knows? Every person that's in that office, and I don't mean it was always, the people before made all these mistakes, and now everybody's always kind of seems to be fixing everybody else's.
Yeah. So,
I don't want to
yeah.
speak for Amy, but I know in the conversations that we've had, her intention was she really wanted to get something in writing so that if somebody came in, like Kevin came in and said, hey, what do I do? What is the process? We have a piece of paper to
Here's
say,
a piece of paper.
these are
Yeah.
the steps. If you're gonna sell, here are the steps. If you're converting, here are the steps. Because it's hard to kind of verbally tell people that and then effectively communicate it to all the working pieces in that process.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it does too come down to communication, where if the information is being sent to certain, board chairs or department heads, but then that isn't being trickled down to
Yeah.
the boards and commissions, it further delays the process on this end.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah. So, and that, especially when you start talking about this is all timed. We
Yep.
miss something,
Mhm.
we've lost all
Absolutely.
options. So this is a terrific start to it. I
I'd be
would,
happy to work on the pieces that are, the procedural pieces as far as, as soon as we get something, when that clock starts, what do we have to do?
Mhm.
Like the appraisal, that's not when you have a notice of intent to sell, that's when you have a notice of intent to convert. And kind of like what I did with Kevin recently, it was kind of like, these are the things that we have to have and things we have to do. I'm happy to do that based on,
Yeah.
my cheat sheet, so to speak, from MGL that outlines those.
yeah. I would ask that you go by the document that I sent to you, just
Mhm.
because, like I said, it flows a little. It just really kind of moved some bullets around so that like stayed with like. It was not any rudimentary changes. It was just or any significant changes. It was more
And
bullet moves around. you go through it and add what the office does.
Mhm.
And then when you get it done again, you know, if it needs to come from my email or somebody else's email to get it done, and I'll follow up and
Yeah, it's
the
really a
other-
team effort, because
Yeah,
it really is,
yeah.
there's a lot of folks involved in the process to
Yeah.
make sure that it goes correctly.
Mhm.
And I know that last week there was a planning board member who raised some questions about the process recently, and I tried my best to explain the ways in which the process was followed, and he felt differently, and I feel like if we just had something in writing, we could say,
Yeah.
here's where we're at.
And just as a side note, this this procedure fits perfectly with like an if then kind of a chart. Are you taking it out of chapter 61A, 61B, whatever, and then it's, you know, are you converting? Are you selling? Yes, if yes, then this, and then you have the backup for the words, but at least it starts putting you on the right path. So I'd like to follow it up at the end with something like that we can add to it. But I think it's moving along. I hate to delay it again. Hopefully, nothing major. No, don't anybody take out any land just yet. Okay, just sit tight for a little bit. We know what we're doing. It's just good to have it written down and make sure that stuff's not missed. So that's our goal. So,
But I also, if I can, I mean that, you know, call it uneducation or whatever it is, the 120 days has been standard for how long?
Yeah, that's
Whatever.
GL.
I mean, that just is what it is, so, I mean, all of this is great internally, but anybody doing it, they gotta understand that it doesn't happen, it is what it is, and,
but even within that, you know, we have
You
to do
know.
something within 30 days, and then
Right.
something has to happen within 60 days, and so there's that, and then there's little pieces still that are milestones that need to be made within
And, yeah,
timeframe.
if I may, I think part of the intent of the policy is to just kind of reiterate that Rutland would like to take MGL and follow it as far as monitoring the land and everything. If you're taking it out and not doing anything, and just kind of a little bit of teeth behind that part of MGL that may or may not happen, but this is blatantly spelled out that this is.
If you send somebody to MGL and say, you figure it out, I mean,
Yeah, it's tough to read.
it's tough to
to
read.
understand.
It's like you need the idiot, what is the idiot guide to the MGL? Somebody
What-
should
what
write
is it
that.
when you're in college and there's almost,
Oh,
there's something
Cliff
else.
Notes?
Yes, Cliff Notes, thank you.
I'd like the idiot one first. The Idiot's Guide to the MGL, and we'll make a lot of money. All right, so I think we have our next steps on that. The next under old business is TA search firm. We have a scheduled meeting that has not been confirmed for Thursday, December 1st, to talk to MRI.
So there would be 2 search
Okay.
firms that evening. I reached out to the 3 that we had provided. 2 are interested in working with us. So we would schedule it 1 for 6 p.m. and 1 for 7 p.m. that evening. Both firms have confirmed that they can attend. One of them would have to be on Zoom. But I just had not heard back from all the board members, so I first wanted to make sure everybody could attend before I confirm with them and posted the agenda tomorrow.
6 p.m. is tentatively.
6 p.m. is Community Paradigm Associates,
Okay.
and 7 p.m. would be MRI.
And Collins Center is not
They're not interested.
interested.
They're not interested whatsoever.
No.
So they had emailed me saying that they weren't, so I was getting blamed for them not being interested apparently around town. I wanted to just put it out there that when I had emailed them, they had emailed me back saying that they would be happy to discuss the possibility of working with the town, and what the cost would be. They wanted to know if the board was in agreement with what is needed for the next town administrator, what had gotten in the way in success. They had some questions. And then they would be happy to expand the scope a bit and help the board address the questions. So when I had said that all 3 were interested, Collins Center had some questions or whatever, I forwarded everything to Tamika. I didn't reply to them because at that time we were still, as a board, not behind.
We're on the same page.
Yes. so I didn't respond to the Collins Center at that time. Then when Tamika reached out, they said that they didn't receive a response to that email, which is true because I didn't respond. That they're not interested if the underlying issues had not been addressed. They also had questions as to why we were doing interviews versus just choosing a firm off of the bid list. My thought was that if they were coming to interview, that they would provide some information as to how they would help us look at help us answer those questions, was my understanding of when they sent that email, saying that we would be willing to work with you, address these questions also, whatever, and not like, no. So they said that they aren't willing, they said that they're not interested in assisting the town if the underlying issues have not been addressed. That's what they said. So, and questions why we were doing a interview of multiple firms if there was a valid procurement process that we would have to follow to issue a scope of work and everything. When we had interviewed them before with Margaret, it didn't seem to be the issues. I think that there's been a lot of back and forth with them with the charter, and they've been brought in a lot of times to talk about the charter that hasn't gone anywhere with the money that's been appropriated from free cash a few town meetings ago. So I'm not sure what, but I just wanted to put it out there that, you know, if public feels that that's on my head, that I ruined a relationship with the Collins Center, then that's what it is. But I didn't think that that was what it was. I took it more as this would be part of our process, and that they could come in and talk to us about it.
Which they indicate in the reply email to Tamika, or was this part of what you expected the process to be? So, I don't. At this point, I'm sorry that happened. It is what it is.
Right.
We now only have 2 people to look at, which I think are very different from Collins, but I don't know that they're different so much from each other. So we have this, but we don't have a quorum to speak to anybody. So unless we can do that,
I'm sorry.
do we have a quorum?
Lyndon did indicate to
Okay,
me,
that's
and
right.
he can confirm that he is available. I know you are, and Skip. So we
Okay.
just needed to know if Leah and Tom were available
Okay.
on Thursday evening.
And I apologize for not getting back to you. I should be available on
That's fine.
my week. I think is planned.
Okay.
December 1st is okay.
Okay.
And I just wanted to put it out there. I know I had said every other Monday was kind of iffy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I should be available also every other Monday just going forward.
Okay.
On the off Mondays also. I know that doesn't help with this, but just
Sure, that's good to know.
for
Great. So I guess you can confirm.
Okay.
Okay. And I would love it if you'd send me an outlook.
Yes. I will.
All right, on to new business.
If I may,
Oh,
Chair,
yes.
just one question. Tom, you still there? Are you available on Thursday? Tom? Mr. Galvin?
Okay. Tamika will.
I mean, you've got a
Let him
quorum
know.
anyway, but
Yeah.
that's, we just didn't hear from everyone, so, okay.
Oh. What a nice song. Tom, I don't know if you can hear me, but we can't hear you at all.
Do you hear me?
Now, quick, hurry up.
Sorry. I should be there in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Doesn't
We'll
answer the
catch his
question.
answer then.
Oh, okay. But you have a quorum anyway, so I'll
Yes.
set it up for December 1st.
Perfect.
And that's to interview the firms
Yes.
and then
Right.
decide which one we'll be working with going forward.
All right. The new business, joint meeting with Concom on December 6th. I have told Tamika that I am not available, but that doesn't mean don't meet. So I forgot.
Well,
to do the week.
personally, I think both boards should be in full attendance if we're gonna have it. If you're not in full attendance, then what's the
It
point?
can't wait until, I mean, at this point, things can wait
They could wait
till the beginning of the
February.
year. I mean, if
What does
they're
it make
not
any difference?
urgent, but like I said, I don't want to tie anything up.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
You're right, they can wait, but we've been trying to set these joint meetings up for quite a while.
Yep.
Haven't got the response or the cooperation I think that we expect and hope for. Perhaps boards and commissions have the wrong thought about this, but it's really just a joining, if you will, of all the town boards and commissions with the Board of Selectmen, so we're all on the same page, same thinking, open communication, so on and so forth, just to make it successful and get the job done. So, if any, I know we got 2 members of the planning board here, but if any others are watching there, we just want to sit down at the table and lay the chips on the table, that's all. All right, it's not meant for any other bad reason, it's just to sit down and talk. Open lines of communication, so we all know where each other are coming from, okay?
And then I see stuff like policies and procedures flowing much nicer.
Yep.
I think, I have.
So do we have a quorum for that night, through the chair?
For who, Concom or for?
No, for the board with Concom.
I'm looking to see what my,
We need at least 3 members.
I'm on that other one, you know.
Oh, jeez.
I'm on the other board. so-
Yeah. I'm just trying to think if your membership would count.
I
both.
suppose I could be on this.
You can just go back and forth.
I can jump back and forth, why not?
Put 2 hats on and say, this is mine,
It
this
might-
is mine.
it might be hard for me to be in person for 6. Yeah, I think that night is.
The commission is certainly open to doing another date. Their thought was, if they tried to plan it on a night as a regular meeting, then at least we know that one board
Yeah,
is
Tuesday
definitely
night.
available, if that makes sense, rather
Right.
than trying to coordinate 2 boards on and off night.
Right.
But they're certainly not, strict that it has to be this one, they just were throwing it out there.
Yeah. No, and I just am looking at my schedule for work for the next month before, between the holidays, and, I think it would.
Does somebody have a calendar handy that could just see what the first Tuesday is in January? Maybe we could do
It's
it.
the 3rd?
The 3rd, I don't know if that works for anybody, if we want to do, because they meet on the 1st and 3rd of each month. Or 1st and 3rd Tuesday, I should say. I don't know if that works for anybody.
I mean, that would probably be easier for me personally, but I'm one of a lot, so,
Well, we know Skip will be there.
One way or t'other.
Are they meeting on the 20th? Because I would have,
I won't be here the 20th.
okay.
That's right.
No, I definitely won't, so neither one of the boards got me in that one.
Book it.
I'm writing it down, unwilling to participate.
That's right, do it. Do it.
Excuse me, Tamika, what does the Concom meeting look like? Do we have any hearings? I don't think we do.
No.
So
For
there's
this
nothing that,
upcoming one?
what's that? Yeah, for either, certainly for the 6th,
And I don't have anything in the pipeline for the 20th
for the 20th
so I was
either.
thinking
And no
maybe
submissions
January
yet,
3rd.
are there, for the 20th?
Just COC, but those don't
Yeah,
require a
there's
hearing.
nothing. I was just thinking in terms, Leo, you were saying that you may have an issue with 6 o'clock, which is fine, because if we didn't hold it first, if we put it towards the end of the agenda, we have enough other things to hold us for
Well, it's 30
as
minutes.
much as an hour if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, if Carol can't
I
make
can't.
Right, so if you get, right, so
I
I,
mean, if you had said 7:30, 7:45, maybe, but I've got something at 7. so
How do you guys feel about January 3rd? Does that work
Either the
for
20th
everybody?
of December or January 3rd.
We can't do the 20th because it's.
All right, so
I
That's why I said
personally
book
would
it.
rather push it off till the 3rd of January. It's-
Okay.
I think that's gonna be best, it's gonna be after the holidays, we're not gonna have,
Yeah.
sure, we'll all be hungover, but
if you're still hungover on the 3rd, I want to go to that party. All right, so let's do the 3rd,
Okay.
and if something comes up, we'll.
Okay. Does that work for Lyndon? Tom's off now. I don't know if Lyndon can hear us.
Lyndon, do you think
Yeah.
the 3rd?
Tuesdays are good for me, so any of them are fine.
Good.
Okay, great. All right, cool.
Leah, is it generally better to start, to plan to not have it first thing in the agenda for your scheduling?
I should be okay on the 3rd.
Okay.
It's just, it's just usually, the 3rd should be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
But by not having it, first? Are you talking about having it first? That sounds,
It's first because it sets a time for you all to be present, as opposed to,
okay.
as, you know,
Yeah, we get
if we had
hearings.
hearings that night, we would just have to schedule those a little differently, which isn't a problem. I just want to make sure that we can get everybody together at the same time, at the
Perfect.
same either virtual or physical place, so we can have the discussions we want to have. And whether that's at 6 or at 7 is unimportant to me.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. But to all, I am in the process of lining up some trainings, in-house trainings for our own staff. I have sent information out to department heads, and I think that's very important for employee relations, for all of us to line that up. I don't know that I can request or require an elected board to partake in that. I'd like to. I think it'll do us all a lot of good, but as I said, it's an elected board. I don't know what kind of say we have over that. Just a recommendation that I'd like them to take part in that.
Concom's appointed.
Yeah, Concom's appointed, planning board's elected.
Planning board's elected, is
Board of
Board of
Health.
RDIC appointed?
No, that's appointed.
RDIC is appointed.
Okay.
Assessors are elected.
Okay, I want to see the program first, but I just think it's a step that we've all been talking about
Yeah.
this for months, and communication,
Yeah.
transparency, and I think it's very important that we all just jump in. There's a tremendous amount of wealth of knowledge out there, Mr. Crane, and that we just have to learn, all of us, to use it together and get some stuff done, and be on the same page. That's
Is your
all.
intent to have just the chairs of the boards?
I think
And
it's best to
department
have the
heads,
whole-
or
the
is
whole-
the entire staff?
Well, department head, as far as our departments, the department heads will start with, but as far as boards and commissions, I'd like to see everybody there.
Okay. Tamika, let's put on the agenda, please. Thank
So emphasize again, it goes to the chairman of all the boards, not
That's
through
right.
the,
Goes to the chair.
us little guys down the
We've worked
bottom.
We've worked with, well, planning board, we're trying to line up for something for quite some time now, and it's just everybody's not, in a sense, we're on the same page with this, but to you gentlemen that are on the planning board, it's really very important that we have this. Very important to Selectman's office, town administrator's office, all the departments, so we all know where we're coming from, what we have to do, and how we get there. Okay?
It'd be nice if it didn't have so many meetings.
I know, Dick, I know.
We need to start feeding you then. Right? You feed them and they come? All right. Next is, we have been invited by the
Wachusett Chamber of Commerce.
Wachusett Chamber of Commerce to attend, and we've been asked to attend, and we've been asked to present a citation for the grand opening for Dolce Vita Catering Company tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. I hope they're serving breakfast there. Welcome, coffee at least. So we have a citation that I will read, and we can decide if we're going to sign it as a board, and then we may we'll do so. Lyndon's?
I took his
Because
name
he's
off
not
'cause
here.
this
You're so
evening.
smart. You're so smart. So from the Select Board, official citation, be it known that the Town of Rutland Select Board hereby extends its congratulations to Dolce Vita Catering Company in recognition of the grand opening of Dolce Vita. Be it further known that the Town of Rutland Select Board extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the Select Board members and presented on November 29th, 2022.
Motion to sign.
Waitman seconds.
Any
Clock
discussion?
Waitman, aye.
Nichols eye.
And Benoit aye. And I will be attending.
Carol, if Tamika can leave that in the lobby in the annex, I can do it. I can go sign it first thing in the morning.
She doesn't want you to sign, she didn't put your name on it.
Lincoln, I'm very sorry I took your name off because I knew you weren't going to be here tonight.
Oh, fine.
It needs to be,
All right, that's fine.
it needs to
I'm
be,
sorry.
it needs to be there. It's gonna go home with me tonight so that it can be presented.
That's okay.
Can you run down now, Mr. Nichols?
And make
No.
us, and
We'll
make
get you
us
to the
all
door.
ill. All right, thank you. Smithsonian exhibit, public apology to Carrie if she's listening. She asked me on Friday if I could please write something up from on behalf of the select board, from the select board, and I tied, it's all right here. She wants us to, so I didn't get this, I don't know if I saw this link, because I was trying to find something to start me with this. So the quote would be from the board, I'm trying to read it quick. It's Mass Humanities wants to use it for promoting the Smithsonian being here in Rutland later this month, or any minute now. So what I would like to do, if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'd like to write something and send it to Leah. And Leah, if you can help me further write it and hopefully get it to her tomorrow.
Yeah.
She knew it was on the agenda tonight. She wanted it by Friday, and my weekend didn't go that way, so.
Yeah.
That sounds great to me.
Do we need to do anything to make her just done? All right, so the next is from the special town meeting, article number 27, which had to do with the not the composition of the select board so much as the members, increasing it from 3 to 5. Apparently, somebody when it increased thought that we could just go to 5 by bylaw, but we can't do it by bylaw. It needs to go through the state. So now we have paperwork to sign, and Leah has the motion.
So I move that the board vote to submit the highlighted language which is provided in a document from KP as the form of a special act, and we authorize the chair of the select board to sign the letter to the state representative and state senate submitting the same.
So move. Second. Whatever.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call.
Black eye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, eye.
And Benoit, aye. Thank you. All right, license renewals. So Tamika ran something by me and I thought it made sense, but that doesn't mean it makes sense. Just in the conversation, I thought it did. We have licensing for X amount of dollars for a number of things that whether they do it on January 1st of a year or they do it on December 31st of a year, it's the same price. So for the smaller fees, $20 isn't a big deal, but if you're looking at a liquor license for $1,000, you know, it's a bigger deal. So between us, we kind of thought maybe the half-year mark. So if you request a license from January 1 of a year to June 30th of that year, you pay the full price. Anything from July 1 to the end of the year, it would not be prorated because that would just get what day of the month and how many days are left of the year, but to just make it in half. So they're a half a year license, they get a half a year. Because that come in January 1, they have to do it again. So it just seemed like a goodwill type of a situation, but like I said, just because that's our thought didn't mean that it should be done or needs to be done. So
I guess I have a question. For these, are they, I know we had this conversation, maybe Chief Monaco, if you can refresh my memory, what kind of like inspections do police, fire, building have to do on a yearly basis? Or, you know, like if we're collecting a fee, is the same amount of work
being
from town
done
employees being done regardless of whether it's a January 1st or a July 1st?
The only thing we do is the auto dealerships. Building and fire do much more as far as permits go, but I don't think the workload changes throughout the year.
So it's still done based on a permit being collected versus...
I was just gonna add, they charge their own separate fee to do those inspections, both the fire department and the building inspector. So those fees are covered separately under those departments. So any fee that we collect for services are for staff time, publication of hearing notices, mailings, things like that.
Yeah, so I guess I was just looking at it more from a perspective as does the amount of work that needs to be done change versus, you know, I totally understand if they're getting it for a 6 month, but I would think that if they're coming in at a half month or whatever, it's a new business start or something, or like a restart. And so I would assume a lot of the work on that front would need to be still done.
If I may, just from a different perspective, the inspections and things that are done separate from their office, if that makes sense. So even if they didn't need to, say, get a common vic license from us, they would still have to get their inspections done, you know, if they were serving food by Board of Health and things like that. So if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is that I think more from what it came from is there's actually 3 businesses here in town that, after waiting for the ABCC, got their licenses very late in the year, and so they paid those fees up front, and that was basically for like 3 months of working, and now they're having to pay those fees again to renew those licenses. And so for those businesses that are just starting up, you know, it's a lot of money up front for them, and so they had kind of brought that to our attention and said, are there any options available? And it kind of raised off a little bit of a light bulb, like maybe it is something we could take into consideration, because where we are trying to promote businesses in town, you know, we certainly don't want to make it unaffordable for them, if that makes
So
sense.
I play devil's advocate after I've said that it was something that I thought about. So exactly to Leah's point, is if it doesn't cost us this much money in resources, then we're
But
you know, are we discounting our services?
if I may, devil's advocate, I don't even know if that's a thing. All of the fees that we collect essentially go into the general fund, so they're not specifically allocated to services per se, at least through our office. But they're also paying for permitting separate to all the other departments as well. So they're still going to be collecting a fee for their services. So I guess if you were thinking of it as services, it would be whatever our office does for it.
Yeah, I'm asking what our office does for it, and if that's accounted. So when we redid fees recently for the zoning board, I think it was, or whomever, you know, we found that we were losing money because it was costing more to do business than we were charging for. So I think it's the same thing here. You know, are these fees set by the town? I think.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think those are kind of different situations, and only because, like for the ZBA, the cost of doing business was higher because paying the secretary, they had such a limited budget to pay the secretary, so the time it took to do those things was outweighing what the fee was. On the flip side, in the select board office, my salary is not paid by those fees, if that makes sense. So those fees are taken and put into the general fund and eventually go to free cash. They're not one and the same of, you know, we take these fees and then we put it towards the time for working on these applications, if that makes sense. So I think that's a little bit of the differentiation.
I guess my question was just as far as like posting, if, for public hearings and stuff, if we're still able to collect what we need for mailings and publications, postings, all of that, like,
Here's the challenge with that. The challenge in the way that it works is that those fees are collected and they're put into the general fund, but then we pay for things like postage and public hearing out of our supply and purchase services out of our budget items.
Right.
So technically speaking, it doesn't go to pay the other hand, if that makes sense.
Right, but I just wanna make sure that we are collecting what, that the town is getting back what we're paying out in postage or post,
Even
like,
even at half, even if you did the half a rate, it would still be more than sufficient to cover the you know, the posting in the newspaper and the postage for mailing out the abutter notifications.
yeah, I mean, I'm all for promoting, you know, and helping the businesses, especially as when Amy was here to talk about, it's all small business, like local small businesses, it's not big chains or anything, like, so I'm all for trying to ease their cost of doing business as a startup, you know, and welcoming them here. I just wanna make sure that we are covering our minimum expenses out, that we're not, that the taxpayers aren't subsidizing that piece. You know, like.
Yeah, and I think You know, it's
tricky.
challenging because it depends on the license. You know, you get $50 for a common vic license. Depending on how many butter notices you send out, is it possible that maybe that doesn't cover it with postage? That's very possible. But then you get a liquor license for a certain type and you get a $1,000 fee, and we know that that more than covers it. So it kind of balances itself out in the end. And I think it's important to remember that by and large, we're going to be collecting the full fee every year for renewals. It would really be a small percentage of cases of when we're getting a new license. Say somebody comes in, they apply in November, and next thing you know, they renew again for January 1, but we're having to pay the full fee twice. That's kind of, I think, what this is more geared towards.
Yeah, I
If
don't,
that makes sense.
I don't disagree. Like I said, I wanted to have the conversation just to kind of think it through. Because,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand.
And this is one of the,
So do you want a
I'm
motion
good
to
either
adopt?
way. Pardon?
Do we need a motion to adopt this policy?
Yes, we do.
If so, I'm making that motion.
Like, but I'll second it.
Can I get a brief
So what, yes.
idea what I'm voting on here?
Yes, so, so what came to our attention last week, and Tamika and I spoke about it, was that if somebody opens a business, transfers a business, anything like that, on
December
today,
1st.
they're paying a full year. And then on January 1, they're gonna pay another full year. So is there some room for goodwill for businesses to say, if you take out and you request the license from January 1 to June 30, you would pay the full year. And then from July 1 to December 31, you would pay half the year. Not prorate, but just half the year, so we don't have to do math and
Okay, yeah.
all kinds of things. And then on January 1, they're paying the full year again.
Right.
So the conversation back and forth was, are we losing? Of course, we're losing $500 here and there, which it certainly adds up. But is there room, I want to say, for goodwill to be able to do that?
Through the chair, you say that though, but Joe Blow has just sold you the business, he paid that year. He doesn't get a rebate.
Right.
If it's an existing business, if it's a new business, there's
Yeah,
not.
that's what I'm talking about,
Right.
the existing.
Right, yeah.
But a new business, yeah, they're starting from scratch and
Right.
they're probably scratching. to
Right,
get
so we've already
back around.
possibly got it, and then we're getting it again. So I do think there's space for what we're doing, but it's, like I said, completely up to the board. Either way. doesn't
And
matter.
the other
Up to me.
the other inspectional services groups have their own fees that they collect when they do the inspection to issue the, to basically say that we're good to issue the permits or licenses. So this wouldn't impact those fees at all. This is really just what our office collects, because that was one of my questions, was making sure that we're not, that the cost, what we have to pay to do the license is covered or whatever.
If I may, through the chair, just a question. So there's no requirement, because if you're gonna issue a license on January 1st through June 30, or from July 1st to December 31st, there's no requirement that says this has to be a calendar year permit, correct?
No, it is.
Correct?
I think it's MGL, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a calendar year permit.
It's a calendar year permit,
Correct.
but yet
All
you can
permits
give another
expire.
permit on July 1st.
Only a new
June-
permit. You can't
January.
renew a permit. You can only give a new license if it's a brand new business.
Okay, my question is, can you give a permit based on anniversary date for a
No.
12-month period?
No, all licenses expire on December 31st.
All of them?
Yeah, so
Okay,
somebody could
just-
apply for one November 1st and it would still expire December 31st.
Just a question, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll talk tomorrow.
So, clock eye.
What was the motion again now?
To approve.
To approve this, okay. All right. Galvin, aye.
Whitman, I.
Nichols, aye.
And Benoit, aye. Thank you, Tamika, to bringing this to our attention.
And thank you guys for your consideration.
Thanks for the discussion back and forth too, because, there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of moving pieces and just trying to make sure that it's fair for business owners and encouraging and promoting them, and also not at the expense of.
Sacrificing ourselves,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And while we're on the topic, though, if I may, I just wanted to get the board's feeling, your preference for how you want to handle the license renewal process. I'm going to be bringing all the licenses forth at the December 12th meeting, and I would prefer not to have paper copies of every application for the board because the paper would be crazy. So I didn't know if you wanted me to upload them to the drive, if you felt like you personally wanted to review each application, or if you were comfortable with the fact that I collected everything necessary and I can present you a list for each group of
I'm comfortable with you just presenting the list, and if you said they got it, fine. If they didn't pay it, then see you later, bye.
Right, I like an Excel sheet or whatever, you know, like business type and name, and then what is required, and just check marks that they have.
Sure.
And the auto dealers, you've asked for copies of their books.
Yeah, so I had spoken with Lyndon and Carol at the very beginning of the season to kind of understand why the board was asking to see the dealer logbooks at those meetings. And after doing a bit of research, basically MGL, the only reason for doing it is just to make sure that they're still in business, basically. So I thought it would be easier, rather than having them come to the meeting and you guys sit up there and look at the logs, if I just got a copy of some of their most recent deals that they've done and include that in the package. So that's what I've been doing.
And I asked Tamika if the board is comfortable with just looking at a list. Tamika will have everything on her computer, and if we have any questions, she can pull up something and we can ask a question and you'll have the answer.
And I'll bring my folder that has all the
Oh, yes,
original
you have-
documents in it, so if
Right.
somebody wants me to pull something, I can. But then that way you don't have a stack of things in front of you that you're trying to, if everybody is okay with doing it that way.
That's great.
Okay.
All right. So speaking of upcoming meetings, because we're at the end of the agenda and we will be going into executive session, but before we do, we have a meeting on December 12th and then not another formal meeting, public meeting, until January 9th. Our next meeting after the 12th would be the 26th, and I've asked if we could skip that one. We will take a quick Zoom meeting to approve payroll, because that needs to be done every 2 weeks, and we'll set that up the best time. I think you're still working with Becky to find out whether it's the Friday or what day it is, so.
Yes, because as I'm thinking about this, as you're saying it, I don't believe that the board can actually meet on that Monday, because technically
It is a holiday.
it's a holiday.
It is a holiday.
So we'll have to find out, if we either would have to do it that Friday.
Which Monday was that?
Or
The
the 26th, the
of
day after
December.
Christmas.
So we're
Oh,
not going
26th
to,
of
we're not
December.
going to meet. We do need to meet prior to that at some point to approve payroll
And-
to get us through to
Yep.
January 3rd.
9th.
3rd?
9th.
9th.
3rd is Concom. No, 3rd is
Glasses,
Concom,
I
that's
can't
why you're
see.
thinking about it. I'll check with Becky
Okay.
to see what date we would need to do, and we could just do a quick Zoom meeting.
We'll just do a quick Zoom meeting and
Yep.
who can be there, but I would appreciate the week off between the Christmas and New Year's, so
So these are good though?
those are good.
Okay.
Those are good.
And we were
Yes,
asking
January
if
3rd.
you were available on December 1st.
That's where I lost you, the
Yes.
dates.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna
I know I can't do the 6th.
Okay.
I don't know which one
I
that was.
can't either, so,
Okay.
and three of us really can't,
So we were
so,
talking about December 1st for the interviewing the search firms for the TA stuff. That's this Thursday.
Yeah, sure.
I think 6 and
6 o'clock is
6
for
and
one of
7.
them, and then
6
7
p.m.
o'clock the second one.
Yep.
Location to be determined.
Okay,
I'm
so
trying to
the
work that
first
with
at
Peter.
6.
You know what, if it needs to be over to the annex,
Yeah, but I have to work with Peter on that for staffing, because one of the firms has to, so we have to have Zoom accessibility, it has to be recorded. So I'm trying to work with Peter on
because
figuring
this,
that out.
our issue is Festival of Trees is moving in,
Yes,
so they take up everything but this room.
yeah, but there's an Earthworks board meeting scheduled for this room, so I'm still trying to figure out. But as soon as I know, I will email you guys and let you know.
Okay, so the first at 6, just no location yet.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the next one is January 3rd. We're looking at getting together with Concom. So
January
it's
that's a
is-
Tuesday.
night
Yep.
At 6 p.m.
at 6.
And that's also in this room.
Unless there's anything else for the public meeting, I'd like to, yes.
Real quick question, if I can, even with Tamika. I wanted to make sure, one of the reasons that I came tonight was that I don't need to provide any
Thank you for
additional
reminding me, I forgot to ask that
information into my
question.
license.
Yes, thank you. Kevin reminded me. I apologize for forgetting. So there are 2 license renewals where in the past, the board has asked for specific information from Milk Room Brewing and Lilac Hedge. And after
Really only once, that's the thing, because I've never
Yeah.
been asked before, so that was asked for the other and not for me, so.
It's been brought up by the planning office that they feel that Kevin should be asked for certain documentation. Same for Lilac Hedge, because it ties to the agritourism bylaw. With that being said, I did speak to town council, and they feel that that's more of a zoning issue, and that technically speaking, if the applicant pays the fee and completes the application within the month of November, the APC says you need to issue their liquor license. So there's a bit of a discrepancy, and these two particular companies are asking, what is the select board going to ask from them as far as additional documentation to be able to issue their license?
So, I may be wrong, but I think that what was, first of all, why we asked of Lilac Hedge is because we had no idea before. And I think it's not to do with the liquor license, I think it's to do with the 25% of what you sell needs to come from. And I
The
think
property,
that's the proof that we're looking for, not anything to do with the liquor license. I may be wrong, but that's our conversations with Lilac Hedge previously.
So their question is, why does the board need that information?
Because it's a bylaw that's how they get to be in business, because a certain percentage comes from their property, their land, and the other percentage can be from other local farms and businesses.
So the question is, what does the board want for proof of that? Because last year they provided a letter from their
They did.
accountant stating
They
that,
did.
and they were told that that was insufficient, so.
I don't know that it was, I think it was a conflict of interest. I don't think the letter was incorrect. I think it was that the person providing the letter had a conflict of interest, in our opinion.
So what would we do in that circumstance if it's still the same person that's in that position?
Lyndon, do you recall that like I do?
Yes, it was to just verify that they had the 20% requirement.
But the letter that we got from the accountant from Lilac Hedge,
Yeah.
was a family member. So we weren't quite sure how, if we thought that was a conflict of interest, and maybe we just need to set that aside, and it is what it is. It's an accountant. I think as long as they're a certified accountant, maybe, they're bonded or whatever.
Right, and if they're the official accountant for the business.
Okay. I think it caused us to pause because everything was so new as information goes last year. Sir?
Excuse me, I'm a little confused because I'm not convinced that the select board has the authority to enforce zoning bylaw. I believe that the zoning enforcement officer is the only one who can do that.
Okay, but if that's a provision of having a license, is it not? It's not a provision of, how do you?
It's the opinion of town council that is a zoning matter, and that technically speaking, if they pay the fee and they date the application in the month of November, the ABCC says you have to issue the liquor license. But there needs to be clarity and uniformity in what we're requesting of businesses, because now Kevin is in a different situation with his business where his liquor license was issued before he got his site plan review under the agritourism bylaw. So there's some gray area that we're trying to figure out.
And I think this was to my point as far as going back to look at the bylaws and what the board, what we as select board can request for information and how to obtain the information that, to make sure that we can obtain the information that the bylaw says, but also MGL permits and who has the authority to do it, because I don't know that my understanding is we basically rely on other boards and commissions to provide us the information and then collect fee and application saying that everything else is done and that they're in good standing with taxes and everything like that. And then
exactly. So it goes to the planning office and it goes to the zoning enforcement officer, which those offices, it would seem, would be appropriate, would be tracking to make sure that these firms are complying with that.
Right.
That responsibility would not fall on the select board to do that.
Right.
But there's just definitely been some questions and some concerns raised, and that's why Kevin had come to, was for clarity, because I just didn't really know where the board stood.
Right. And I've had a few,
And Kevin, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for you, so.
No, I was just gonna, if I may, through the chair, just to kind of reiterate, it was new to me all of a sudden in the office that I was gonna be asked of this year. I felt like I was already good. I've been here 3 years, and now I find out that my license could actually be rejected by the planning office. By David George could reject my license because I didn't submit proper accounting to him. I've never been asked for that before. I'm still a little guy. I don't really have this big, huge accountant. I'm not like, for me to go through this process is going to be a lot. I would have liked to have known a little ahead of time, and the fact that I'm on the planning board and I had no idea it was going to. You guys obviously voted on this when I wasn't there, which is fine. I missed some meetings, but if the planning board voted for David George, he didn't. So it was David George. It's not the plan. I want to make sure that you guys understand it's not the planning board, me out of it, or any of the other 4 members asking for any of this. It's David George asking for this to me after the fact, because he never came to me and asked for it. Never knew I was going to have to provide this. Don't have a problem doing it. It's going to take me a while. It's not going to happen by January 1st, for sure. And I don't even know how to approach this moving forward with complexity of my business, which I'm sure is no different than any other business out there that's trying to get going, trying to work with things. It gets pretty detailed, I think. When you look into a T-shirt or you look into a baseball hat, if you're going to tell me I can't sell those things anymore, it's going to go to percentages. I mean, it gets overly complicated when you start really going down these avenues with people.
First of all, I'm not sure if it's not our bylaw. It's Mass Agricultural.
No, it's
Wetlands
Wetlands bylaw.
Wetland zoning bylaw.
That
When
we
the
passed.
agricultural accessory use amendment was put in 2 years ago? Roughly?
It was closer to 3.
Closer to 3? There you go.
It was set up so people could do what Kevin's doing.
Could do this, right. So it is a Rutland bylaw, but it's a Rutland zoning bylaw, not a general bylaw.
And I thought there was conversation as to how to manage that it probably didn't make sense to have it a yearly commitment. And maybe I'm misremembering, and I don't know that it was ever formally voted on. I felt like there was some conversation in the periphery as to maybe it's every 3 years or 5 years you ask for recertification from basically kind of on a goodwill, faith-based kind of thing from the businesses, because you figure it takes a lot of these farms time to get up and going, so they have to prove it the first year and then give them a little bit of time and then check in year 3 or year 5 or periodically, but to continue on it yearly is tough from a business perspective as well as from a town perspective, and it was never really, that I know of, elucidated as to what we were looking for, what the town was looking for. Not, I don't want to say, like we as an individual, you know what I mean, but the town, how to go about proving it.
I think the problem is that there's no policy in place, and I think that the most appropriate place for this to lie is with the planning office and the zoning enforcement. And I think it's kind of being pushed back on the select board to kind of do that as part of the licensing process, but I don't know that that should be specifically tied to it, and perhaps it would be better if those 2 offices created a policy so that there isn't this gray area, because I don't know that it is being monitored outside of the annual license renewal process when this question comes up. Right, if that makes sense.
I think that was to my point before, was what are people, like what are we as a board, but also town looking forward going forward, because it's a lot to dump on businesses in November and December when they need their renewals by ideally January 1st, right? So just again to that checklist piece, as far as is there a checklist, and you're under the ag bylaw, agritourism bylaw, so you're doing this is what you need to submit, this is what we're looking for, and guidance as to how to obtain that, because is it just me as a farmer signing off on it, and then I can, or what's the you know, to kind of Carol Linden's point, like the proper authority to document that, and what will a town accept?
I think it's, I think it's really important that whatever decision we make, that we communicate that to those other offices, because when I submit those through Viewpoint, if that particular office doesn't agree with the decision made, they will not put through the approval, which is kind of what stemmed this conversation. And so I just want to make sure that I can have everybody all set to go by the time I present it to you guys, because I don't want it to have to be, you know, approvals contingent on X, Y, Z. If that makes sense.
I want to just bring up another point. If this is specific to liquor licenses only,
It is, yes.
and why would that be? Why, I mean, so we have 4 farms that are approved for agritourism, only 2 of them sell liquor. Why so are the other farms now gonna be under what they're doing? Why is just people that have a liquor license have to provide, you know, if we have 10 other farms that have agritourism, and all they wanna do is sled on the whatever and sell hot
You're selling
chocolate.
alcohol. Come on, Kevin.
Well, I'm saying, but
You're
why
getting
is
an
it?
alcohol license. He said the guy's not even getting one.
No, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, and confused look down my face is because the bylaw that you're referring to is not what I'm thinking about. Because I know that what I read came from Mass Agriculture. And we actually had somebody try to interpret it for us. So it wasn't ours. We couldn't go
Mass
to
MGL,
somebody
right.
here. Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking at. So now what I'm seeing is the question is, if we take what comes from that office and then did a bylaw get written to reflect the information in that? So the bylaw I'm not familiar with, so I'm not able to speak to that. And I was just trying to find, it's like this big. It's not even, and that's big print. It's not very big. So what do we do for an answer tonight? Because we need one tonight.
Through the chair. Is the question just the time limit of you getting this done?
No, well, I mean,
Okay.
I haven't even called my attorney yet, so I don't know what questions are gonna come up from this. I know that for 3 years I've had, you know, when I got my license, and I'm just speaking for myself, went to the federal government, United States of America, they gave me a federal license to produce and sell malt liquor beverages. Then it went to the state then approved it with multiple visits, conversations, the ABCC came into my location. Then it went before the town of Rutland, got approved, and then the agritourism bylaw was passed after I got my licenses. Once that passed, then I applied for a site plan approval through the agritourism bylaw, which then, the main reason I did that was so that I could have live music. Within that bylaw, there's weddings, there's all these others. I don't want a wedding, I don't want a mud run, I wanted to be able to have live music, and I was not able to have live music at my location without being zoned properly for it. So my liquor license had nothing to do with the agritourism bylaw. I submitted that so that I could have, and it was before 2 years ago, I had a big G-Love thing, I wanted to have it before that weekend, or I could have been, by the zoning enforcement officer, could have come in on Friday and said, you're not having your concert tomorrow. You're not zoned properly for this. I worked with David George through the whole thing to be able to do this, and then we said, well, we have all these other farms want to be able to do A, B, C, D, E, and F, and all those got listed in. It all got lit, but there was never that dialogue for me anyways, that I'm gonna have to produce documentation annually to prove, you know, that X amount of product that's made and sold on my farm. All we had to do was write a letter saying that we're in compliance with MGL statute. All of my liquor, that is, all of my beer that's made on site, and then all the beer that's made off site, we do utilize other breweries, as they all do, for overage and everything else. That's all submitted and documented through the ABCC, and they monitor that. So, I mean, that's one of my, and that's why it just came up now, just so you know, Mr. Clark, I didn't mean I'm not trying to single us out, but it sounds as though this question from the planning office is only being brought up for the two people for the liquor license. And if that's the case, that's fine. But if there's other people that are under the end of being brought up because of the agritourism bylaw and the liquor license, it sounds like that's not really, it sounds like it's a stretch of a connection, because in the agritourism bylaw, if somebody else opens up a farm and they start, selling hot chocolate, 25% of what, you know what I mean? You need to, whatever it is, all these other little things that are, if you're under that agritourism bylaw, my thing, liquor or no liquor, you're gonna be held accountable. Who's gonna do that? And then does it go down to every turkey that's sold and every, it can get, I don't know.
And Lilac Hedge is different because they don't make any of the liquor that they sell. None of it is produced by them. They sell from other vendors, other places. So that isn't really applicable to what the bylaw is asking for, if that makes sense. But there definitely needs to be some communication on it, or these are not going to pass through the process through Viewpoint.
Yes.
And I think it's tough if it hasn't been communicated from like the start that they need to keep track of all of this, and then it's a month that they have to go back and backtrack all of their percentages and everything, as they're probably trying to close out books and everything also. I think if they knew that this was always going to be something that was asked for from the start, that it's a little bit easier to just go into it knowing that you have to keep track of it. Not that the information can't be obtained, but the amount of time that it's going to take, to Kevin's point, and not knowing that it needed to be done, is an additional burden in a short amount of time when they're putting in their notices to renew their licenses.
I guess my other thing is that it just, to me, from the outside, it seems like this is all, I'm not speaking for Mr. Williams or anybody else on the planning board, but it sounds like this is a decision. You keep saying planning office, it's hard for me to sit here and say that because I don't hear about these things. This is like the third time tonight that I'm here that the planning office, it's David George, and I'm sorry, I'm saying, I wish he was here tonight to speak to this. He's the one pushing this. Why isn't he in front of you? Why isn't he here answering questions? That's what I'd like to know, because if I asked the questions, I don't know that I would get the answer from him either, honestly.
Yes.
If I may, so it sounds to me like we have two separate, disjoint issues. One is granting of the liquor license, and yours may be exempt from accessory agriculture because it was done before the bylaw, right? So it's grandfathered. So agricultural accessory does not apply to his liquor license at all. He says without actual justification, the lawyer would have to check that statement. Because your agricultural accessory use does not, did it include alcohol when you went for the permit, for the special permit? I'm trying to separate the two issues
between.
It's
in the description of what we do, so, we had to write as should have brought it, well, we had to write, Alta Vista Farm, blah, 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 does this, and we are open weekends, seasonally, and during these times, we're open till 8 o'clock. I'm pretty sure in there it says we serve alcohol, so the site plan, within the site plan dialogue, I'm pretty sure it's stated in there that alcohol
so it could be
is part of it.
considered as part of the, okay, that complicates whether or not it's actually part of the agricultural accessory use. However, as Tamika pointed out, the ABCC is quite clear about the license and what, in order to get to renew a liquor license, once the applicant follows the steps for the liquor license, it's virtually pro forma, and that the agricultural accessory use and the zoning enforcement is a completely separate question. I can understand, my guess is that the planning office said, hey, the easy way to get this would be to include it as part of the permitting process, but it can't technically be part of the permitting process. Number two, it is reasonable that anyone who has gotten an agricultural accessory use permit would understand that they would need to supply documentation around their product sales, because that's what the bylaw says. It doesn't say you have to do this periodically, but it says what the requirements are. And if they don't meet the requirements, that's a zoning enforcement issue.
Tamika, so I don't have an answer for you. If we can find a time to sit down with David George, I'm trying to find my works calendar, see if I can pull it up. So I may have, I don't think it could be tomorrow morning, but it might be able to be tomorrow afternoon. So.
Can I just, one real quick, just because you made, like, the light bulb one, you know, so if this is the case, this is fine. I'm not trying to change any policy, but education is blessed, right? So then I can change, in theory, I can change my site plan and not mention, oh, my site plan is only for live music, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. It's not. And there's also the parking, the lighting, the toilets. You have to put that in there. But in the verbiage, I did it because, you know, that's what I was. But if if that has nothing to do with it, I'm just going to take it out of the verbiage and just not say. And I can get an amendment on a site plan in 30 to 45 days through the planning board. It's an amendment. We don't need a public hearing. We don't need to do that. You can go through the board and they say, okay, when I first did my site plan, I went middle of the road. A couple other guys went up here. If I could go down here and do. That's fine. I know what my business is. I did it to a different level, and I think some of the other guys did, so that the opportunity's there. But if that opportunity is taking away from, where we are in my everyday course of business, I don't know that it's going to be worth it.
So I think let me meet with David George tomorrow and come up and find out where he's coming from, and it might be an answer that you're grandfathered. I don't know. It depends on how things were written, or any changes that he meant. He may have made changes that then ungrandfathered him, and as you said, a lawyer. But
well, that's the other problem. Just to keep in mind, every time this happens, and every time anybody needs to go to their account, everybody needs to call the attorney, it costs the business a lot of money. So that's why I didn't do it before tonight. If you come to me and say these are the questions we have, then I'll call them, because every time I call them, it's get billed for.
And if I may make one last point, it feels like the amount of work necessary to be in compliance with zoning bylaw, I don't want to call it burdensome. I will say that it is a hurdle that every business needs to cross. And if this is the first time the town has asked for it, with only a month and change to go before the new year, that feels
unreasonable.
No business could be prepared for it today.
I mean, that's pretty much what I said. Like,
right. It's not capricious. It's not.
Hence our checklist.
The only reason I knew is because they happened to be bringing it up,
and
she was like, "Oh, just so you know, you might want it." I'm like, okay. And again, nothing for nothing. David could have sent an email to me or something. I mean, at least say, "Hey, this is something I want to be looking for." And
okay.
But I think also
get it in conversation.
Tamika, if you can just keep the other agro-tourism businesses in the loop, because I think they also have some of them have similar questions, concerns as to what is needed, and based on the opinion of legal, think that they are all set, and maybe now if something has changed, then maybe they aren't, I think to Kevin's point, like, nobody knows what's going on, and, just kind of just arbitrary. Right. And so just that it's clearly communicated, because I don't think Kevin's the only one that may be in this state of purgatory, and
no, he isn't.
So I think
I can come back up tomorrow at 10:30 if that works for David, but I need to.
Okay.
And then hopefully I'll have something for you by the end of the day.
Kevin, I will call David sometime.
This one, I just need to know if I need to call my lawyer, because it's, I mean, after this, it'll be out of my hands. If I need to stop doing that, it's gonna be another battle for me, so. If it happen for 2024, then we can make the adjustments that are necessary and have it ready for next year's license, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, so.
Enjoy your executive session.
Thank you, thank you, good
See you
evening.
later.
So I'd like a motion to adjourn from this meeting, but, to close this meeting, but then when we will adjourn from the executive session, that's not correct?
No, to adjourn.
No, we have to go back
Return
into
to
vote,
open.
thank
Yep.
you. What
Oh,
she
we do
said.
have to return
Yes,
open.
because we have to.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session for reason number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Number 1, discussion of Sergeant Union's contract to return to open session.
To approve signing. I'll second that.
Roll call.
Okay.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, eye.
And Benoit, thank you. So I am reopening our November 28, 2022 meeting. We've just left executive session. It is 8:39 p.m. For all those listening, it's late. And so I'd like to have a motion.
Make a motion, we approve and sign the Sergeant's Union contract.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any?
Clock eye.
All right.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, eye.
And Benoit, aye. Well, you can go in and show your face tomorrow.
Thanks, Nick, and
Thank you.
Thank the union also.
Well, I will shake your
You've got a
hands
contract there to
on
sign?
behalf of the
Yes.
sergeant,
Thank
so sergeants send their thank yous. I assume.
Oh.
I know they did.
Chief, do you want to
Yeah, I would, sure.
And then do you mind just sending me a copy
Yep.
of the sergeant sign? Thank you.
There's our Rutland Police right there.
What's that?
That's the Shriner's version.
Oh,
name.
is it?
Yeah.
That's when the police used to have an ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are the League of the Shriners up there in Maine.
Okay.
All right, if there's no more anything tonight, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Whitman, seconds.
And roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, eye.
Good night, Nichols.
Gee, thanks.
Bye, Lyndon, feel
Good
better.
night.
And Benoit,
Feel
aye.
better.
Good night.